Hi guys. Hi. Sarah, if I haven't met any of you, I've been in real estate for 14 years, so still going strong. I still love it. It's still exciting. Different every day for sure. So we're going to be talking about buyer consults and getting the buyer agreement signed. So, well, before I start, does anybody want to share anything exciting that's happened to them or any new business?
I have a couple of referrals and I have two buyers.
That's exciting. Yay.
And
hi, hello, welcome.
Possibly a buyer at a house that I did an open house on Sunday, but this would be a perfect class for my follow-up, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, I'm Sarah. I don't think I met you guys. Sonia, nice to meet you. Okay, so the goal of our time together is to learn how to prepare and deliver a buyer presentation and get the buyer agreement signed. Hang on. Okay. Why do you think it's important to get this buyer agreement signed before you start?
I can't even get a Facebook made, let alone get them.
The commitment. Yeah, absolutely. And you don't want to spend a whole bunch of your time with a buyer and then they go off with another agent and close it with that agent. That happens all the time, unfortunately. It's happened to me. It'll probably happen to everyone. Even with an agreement signed, it can still happen. It's just less likely to happen. I found bringing them into the office and having that consult and getting that signed, they're more likely to do business with you than somebody else. Yes.
Do you meet with them here and have them do this, or do you ever like go to their house and have like a walkthrough with their home?
That, well, only that would be a listing appointment.
Okay. Yes.
So if I've done both. If they're selling a house to buy a house, I'll go to their house and do a listing appointment and a buyer consult at the same time. But most of the time, if you're just working with a buyer and they don't need to sell their home, you're bringing them into the office or meeting them and having, I've never done it at their house unless they're listing.
How do you deal with maybe like a passive buyer, someone that's saying, well, you know, I'm kind of looking at this price range. If I were to find something, I would maybe sell my house and buy. Do you sit them down?
I would try to get them, I would try to get the appointment for them to come into the office and find out what their motivation is. But some people are just, you know, if it comes across their path, they'll move, they're not motivated. So you really want those motivated buyers because those you just kind of nurture, you put them on a, you know, a plan and you contact them, but you didn't really motivated to buy within the next, you know, couple weeks. So the only thing to do with those, I mean, because you don't want to be pushy, is just to nurture them and follow up with them, continue to send them homes. But I would still try to get the appointment to bring them in and walk them through the process. So, okay. So the first thing that you will want to do is set that appointment.
Now, how do you? Sorry, I'm dealing with this right now as we speak. How do you get those appointments when people, they're like, yeah, I really want to buy, and then we bring up appointments and they're like, no, they just shut down.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, they don't, it's a process. So if you can't get them in right away, that's okay. I would just keep asking. So, and I know that's uncomfortable to do, but it's necessary because you don't want to just go out and willy-nilly show them the house, and because it's professional. It makes you look like the professional expert to have them come in and you walk them through everything. So what are the goals of the buyer consultation appointment? I think on your page, that's page 5 in your guide. So some of the goals are you want to discover the wants, needs, and values of the buyer. You're going to deliver your value proposition and set expectations for how you will work with the buyer to find their dream home. And then close with the signed buyer representation agreement. So what do you need to do to prepare for that meeting to accomplish these 3 goals? Is anybody, I mean, the first thing would be the buyer lead sheet. Do you guys have, that was in your downloads. Do you have that? It's a buyer lead sheet. It's a page of questions to ask the buyer when you have the initial conversation. Do you guys have, you know what I'm talking about?
I don't think I do.
Oh.
Super handy.
Yeah.
Well, it is super handy, and I will email it to you. It was in the Ignite toolkit. Let me pull it up.
Fire lead sheet.
Yeah.
Yes.
It might be in the pocket of your
Oh,
notebook.
okay.
Okay. It looks like this.
Yes.
Does that look familiar?
Yes.
So whenever you're on that initial phone conversation,
Yeah.
I would have one of these in front of you and ask all these questions and walk them through this, because this is kind of your pre-qual before you bring them into the office. Because you want to find out, are they working with an agent? Are they pre-approved? Have they done anything? Do they know anything? So that is super handy, and I would suggest kind of always having that on hand to walk you through those questions. Because sometimes, especially when you're new, your phone rings and it's exciting and you're like, okay, I'll meet you there in 30 minutes. I've been there, I've done that a lot. And, and it's just, you know, it's exciting. Somebody wants to see you and your phone's ringing. So don't do that. Don't do what I did. For one, it's dangerous. There's been several times where I was like showed that house and I'm like, that was real dumb, Sarah. So it's just, you know, follow these guidelines and you will be a lot more successful and you won't go through as much disappointment, because a lot of times they're not motivated. They don't want to buy. They just want to look at houses. Okay.
I showed a house the other day in East Norman.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got out there, I was like, this is how I die. This is how I'm going to die. I never met them. It was exactly what you're saying. It's just really exciting to get the call.
Yeah.
And we put the offer in and everything, so it worked out really. I didn't die, but it made a genius that day. It was very creepy.
Yeah. And that happens all the time. So, I mean, if sometimes depending on the phone conversation, if I feel comfortable meeting them out there, I will, but it's just smart to bring them into the office. Yeah. And we have scripts for that to bring them in.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's your life and it's scary. Okay, so the goal of the buyer consultation appointment is to obviously get the signed agreement, but you're setting the tone for closing the buyer agreement. It begins with just the invitation to meet for the buyer consult. So do you have your elemental scripts with you?
You're on that side of your,
okay.
So there's a Spark one?
There's Spark and then there's Elements. And I haven't used these scripts personally, but I've been reviewing them throughout the week and they're super helpful. I mean, I would say they're really good scripts. So you get the call and somebody wants to see, a page, this would be 13. Scripts for working with buyers on Ignite Elements script book. You see where I am? Okay. I guess. I'm sorry. I thought you guys had all of these things,
No, the
but,
books have never lined up with the material that we have.
Okay. so do you not have the scripts?
I do see, there's two sets of scripts in ours. The first one is the elementals, which is what you're talking about, and there's sparks behind it.
Okay.
So I flipped too far, that's why I didn't see it.
Okay,
Now,
elementals is where I am, and that is page 13. And it says scripts for working with buyers. So if a buyer called on a property,
Okay.
I'm sorry,
No, it's okay.
I should have had like printed it out. So,
Page 13.
okay, you're missing it.
Well, that's the, I have 12. Yeah.
Well, after class,
All the way to the very back.
Okay.
I can email them to you as well.
Flip too far.
I flipped too far. Okay.
The scripts for buyers are in section 11
I don't
and
know.
13 in the binder.
2, I need some tabs, girls.
So,
And it's page number 13 in there?
yeah, but you have to get on the elementals.
Because there's two. There's
two.
sparks and then there's elementals.
I have Spark 8, find settled leads.
Go
You're
to
too
the
far.
beginning of the sparks.
Oh. Maybe,
So that one is
I'm
on,
sorry.
that's okay. So if a buyer, yes,
Go back farther.
that's, no, it's the elementals.
Don't, sister, blind leading the blind.
Spark what?
So it's in front of the spark, there's the.
I got all kinds of spark. I have spark 4, spark 5.
Here's
Okay.
the page 11.
You're
It says
making Alex
elemental script.
always.
Well, I'll just read it so you guys can get an idea of how it would go. But if a buyer called on a property at 123 Maple Street, it's listed at 249. Let's schedule an appointment to see if it's a perfect home for you. Would today at 4 or Saturday at 10 be better for you? And whatever they agree on, say, great, let's meet at my office. So while we're at, you can review any other properties in our MLS that might be interesting to you. Does that work for you? So if they want to schedule an appointment to meet at whatever house, just say, great, let's meet at my office. And that'll get them in the office. If they're first-time home buyers, that's great because they don't know anything. And they want to be walked through the process. And one of the things I do say is I would like to walk you through the process so that way there's no surprises on your end and you know exactly what to expect. That's one of my kind of go-to scripts to get them to that buyer consult.
Okay, I have a good question.
Yes.
I have a buyer who wants to look at a house, but we have not yet had that appointment. I know them personally. How would you go about doing that at that point?
It's
'Cause it is
easier if you know them personally
Okay.
because you can just say, I would love to show that to you. Why don't you come to the office and I can walk you through the process
Okay.
and we can, look at the MLS to see if there's anything else that you might also be interested in.
Okay.
Because most people don't just look at one house.
Right.
So it's almost a softer approach if you know them. I would think so. And I would just, you're the professional. So this is what professionals do. They bring people into the office. Like, doctors wouldn't just meet you out at the house,
Could you maybe ask if they would do a Zoom consultation?
Yeah, I do that.
Pressure a little bit,
Uh-huh.
and if they wanted to sign an agreement.
I give them the option and, with what's happening today, I say you can come into the office or we can do a Zoom consult. So, yes.
Can we play, like, I just want to ask you serious questions?
Yes.
So I'm going to be the client. I can look at this and I can see a listing agreement, it's so much easier to sign and close. But a buyer broker agreement seems more difficult because the buyer's going to go, I have all these resources at my fingertips, I got Zillow now. I can just call a person who's got the listing and have that 6% to negotiate, and I'll use them as the agent for both ends. Why should I sign an agreement with you?
So after you go, you're going to go through the buyer presentation and they're going to see your value. And then you don't ask for it until at the end. So you're walking them through the process and you're going to give your value proposition of why would they work with you? What do you have to offer? And then at the end, it's an easy close, because it's just like, you know, I work very hard for my clients. I do ask that you sign an exclusive agreement with me. And then I put it in front of them. And I hardly ever get pushback. I think it's easier to do this than to get a listing agreement signed, because it's kind of like a no-brainer. Like, I'm going to do all this work for you, and all I ask is that you work with me exclusively, and you don't pay me anything. So at that time when I plop it in front of them, I explain it briefly. I don't go into, you know, I don't talk too much. I just give a brief explanation of it and then wait for them to sign it. And very rarely do I get any pushback.
What are they obligated to when they sign it? What do they feel obligated to legally?
So legally, they're just, if they ask me that, I explain. If another agent comes to you and asks if you're working with another agent, and if you have a signed agreement, that's what this is, that you're working with me exclusively. If at any time you feel that I am not meeting your expectations, we can rip this up and you can go off on your own. You know, it's not, one of the scripts that I read in here is, this is not a marriage. This is going steady, which is, I really like that explanation, because it's like, yeah, we're not married. You can rip up this agreement. It's just,
this lets me know you're committed to us working together.
correct.
So I actually know of a couple of agents who are confident enough in their abilities that they don't even have their buyers sign agreements. Now, how do you feel about that?
I would still get it signed.
Okay.
Just because it's just smart.
I can see possibly them being like, well, you didn't really help us with it, finding this listing. Yeah, it seems like there'd be more wiggle room for them to try to not pay you for your service if you don't have the agreement.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's a commitment to come in and hear my spiel and sign an agreement, and it makes you look like a professional.
Right.
Versus just going out and showing properties, and because they don't know really what you're about and what you're doing. Other than, because most of the time they're on the internet finding their own properties. So your value that you're going to show them is you're an expert negotiator. You're going to get them the best price. I mean, to answer your question about that, why wouldn't they work with the listing agent? The listing agent is working for the seller.
I mean, and then also, they don't have all houses in Zillow.
Correct.
You know? So you have more access because you can see like the MLS, and you can see all the houses that are, you know, that are being offered.
Correct.
So you can, you know, find something better for them if that house doesn't suit them.
Yes. So so this presentation that you can create in Commands, I mean, they're pretty impressive. It's a tool to help to get to know the values, wants, and needs of the buyers. So we are not, you can create these in Commands, but we're not going to go through and how to edit each page. We're just going to briefly touch on the table of contents, the first pages, because how to edit and everything, that's more of a Tiffany's type class. But that way you can get a good idea of what to do, and it's pretty easy. So each section, it's going to help you connect with the buyer and build confidence in that value proposition. You can make changes or delete or reorder any of it. The resources that you're going to use to create this would be that buyer lead sheets and MLS. So before, when you're having that initial conversation, you'll want to have that buyer lead sheet to help you with this. This would be the first page. I think this is the modern one. There's two different ones. This would be page 6 of your participants guide, that you can see those questions. So what is the objective of this? It's really figuring out your buyer's needs and wants and their goals and their motivation. So I'll give you an example of a mistake I did. I had a buyer and she was going to be a seller. She was a past client and I didn't think I needed to do a buyer consult with her because she's a past client and it was 5 years ago. And I just didn't think that was necessary. And I wish I would have, because I would have felt like I needed to dig deeper of what her motivation is and what her wants and needs are. Because what happened was she wanted to buy a house because she's getting remarried. And we found a property right away in this market, multiple offers. We have to do a full price. That makes her very nervous. I felt like if I would have had this whole conversation on what the market's doing today and yada, 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 and really dug deeper with what she was looking for, it would have gone a whole lot better, because she ended up backing out just because she got cold feet. And the reason was she's not married yet. She's getting, yes, she was engaged, but they don't have a date set or anything like that. So yes, it's very important, even if they're past clients, to, because it was 5 years ago, to have them come in or me meet with her to really walk her through of, what the market looks like today and what is exactly that she's looking for. So I have really good understanding of that, because that was a bunch of wasted time for me.
Does your gut tell you you would have been able to tell it wasn't going to go through, or do you think you could have coached
Well,
her?
my gut was, because in the first transaction I did with her, she was a little bit difficult. So I was telling the lender and my assistant, she's a little difficult, but it's okay, we'll get through this. But I wasn't expecting her to do that. But in hindsight, I think it would have gone better if I would have had this consult. That way, maybe she wouldn't have felt so rushed too.
How do new agents in general know what's going on with the market? What's our best way of preparing ourselves with that information?
Well, I would look at what's every single day, what's coming on the market, tracking those numbers, because right now there's only 300 homes on the market in Norman. Normally this time last year we had 600. So that means our inventory is incredibly low, which means
I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, now I would keep track of those numbers. So that way, if someone asks you what's happening, you have something to say. I would preview homes so you know what's on the market, what they look like. A lot of times buyers, when they call and ask about a property, they'll ask me if I've seen it. And most of the time, no. But as a new agent, I mean, you have more time to look at properties. And it's important. So I would follow those numbers of what's coming on the market, what's selling, what's pending. There's so many different charts in MLS that you can download, and if you need help interpreting them, I'd be happy to help you. So that way, when someone asks you what's happening with the market, well, you have something real to say. You have real numbers to say. Other than, I mean, right now, I do say, well, the market's just bananas right now. Things are flying off the market. So that's something to say as well. But I think just being in the office and hearing other agents talk about it, I mean, that's also helpful.
Something that's helped me is that I doubt that I'll be doing this all the time, but right now I am running the CMA on everything, even properties that no one's even asking about. Because it's giving, like when you run your CMA, you can customize it so that in the CMA report, you can have all kinds of different information and like stats and things like that, which I wanted to ask you, not right now, but later, what all do you typically put in the CMA for buyers and then for sellers? But anyways, it'll tell you stats like how long things have been on the market, what is the ratio of what they were listed versus what they actually sold, which right now, everything I've seen, it's been really close to listing and selling.
Right.
And it's given me a way better feel of the market. And now I can spit out a CMA like that. And I've been running on everything.
Yeah,
I find
that's
house
really
on Zillow It's not even like anything of
And it'll
importance.
make you an expert for that area, that neighborhood, and that's a really smart thing to do.
Yeah.
So on my open houses,
I would find like the paperwork or something.
Wherever I head there, I'm sure you're way far behind somewhere else.
You know how were you the one that commented on Tiffany's post about what classes do I need to be on here? Go to.
Yeah, every single one of them.
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, there's, I think that there,
Something market analysis?
Country Music Awards.
yeah. Let's see which one.
Yeah.
There is a class on CMAs too. That's, but yeah.
And I've just been playing around on MLS. I've just decided I can't break that. I'm just gonna keep playing with it. I've also decided now I can't break command. Yeah. I've also decided I can't break command, so I've just been creating contracts.
Yeah, that's really
Just
smart.
doing it. I'm like, I can't break this.
Yeah.
I'm just like.
And then I would practice
I think
going
I'm
through it.
I,
So I was
no, it's on MLS. So if
I was
you-
going to,
You pay MLS a lot of money a year, so I've been calling you my Chris.
Yeah.
Making you help me do this, because you pay, what is it, like $600?
so I bring CMAs to my open houses because I did an open house on Sunday and I had several people say, are they negotiable? Is this the price? Or, you know, it's just a question that I get. And I hand them a CMA. And I'm like, this is what is currently on the market. This is what's pending. This is what's sold. We're under the price per square foot. And then I always tell people, I would make an offer and I'll see what I can do. Because that's just, you know, I just want to get an offer. But that'll show them, you know, that
Yeah.
gives them numbers like, oh, it's probably unreasonable to come in super low.
Wouldn't the shift book also be helpful in learning the market as well? Do you think, like, some of
Yeah.
that?
I mean, that book is very helpful in general, especially we are going into a shift. Probably very, very soon.
Yeah, the shift book.
It'll be interesting to see how this
It's
plays
by
out.
Gary
how long it
Keller.
takes to
It's-
play out.
Yeah,
it's
but
the
I'm
right-
expecting,
Okay.
And then there's
I mean,
the
with
red
as much
book.
unemployment, I'm expecting.
Yeah.
But isn't
Something to
it-
happen.
I'd like to drill down on it.
Yeah.
It really is.
So I'm, you know, we could be at the top of the market right now, but it's just interesting. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen because we've never been in a situation like this.
Right.
Which probably is our benefit, because we don't yet have our ways set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was in business in 2008 and I was a fairly new agent and I didn't know any better. So I just kept working like I and I did fine. Like, but we're also in Oklahoma, so we don't see that huge
Right.
fluctuation. So I'm not too
You know,
worried about
this
it.
rise that we're experiencing now is the most aggressive rise I've seen in 20 years,
Mhm.
right? And right now, and it's really not a huge percentage rise, it's just a competitive rise in purchasing the house.
Correct.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, you mentioned when you do an open house, you know, you give them the same and everything, you're like, you want me to put in an offer, I can. Is that still like after an appointment? Like if you got someone interested at an open house, are you still sitting down with them in a consultation before you like put in an offer with them on the property?
Probably not so much for that situation. If they wanted to come in, because I would invite them to come in to the office to make the offer so I can walk them through.
Oh, okay, I see.
So I would walk them through the contract and do a semi-buyer's consult of what to expect from, you know, going under contract to closing, but not really what their wants and needs maybe.
Right, because they've already kind of said,
Because,
okay. I
yeah,
want this.
because especially if it's my listing, I'm like, I want to sell them my listing, not somebody else's.
That makes sense.
So I have a question on that. I only put in 2 offers so far, and both of them I sent over a buyer broker agreement and then the buyer broker disclosures as well. But the agreement I put on for 3 months.
Mhm.
Is that something that you would do? I've just been doing it. I don't know.
That's kind of my standard.
That's not sneaky though, right?
No,
I mean, I'm selling them.
I normally do 3 months for most all buyers.
Okay.
So unless I've only had one person say something, I'm like, you know, I don't mind putting them on. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. If someone,
Okay.
I only think that's only happened to me once where somebody,
Well, I mean, there've been
Did
offers
push
and
back
they've
on
gone
that.
under contract, so it's not like, hopefully it will be an issue.
yeah. With today's
those are
market,
approved.
with like multiple offers and everything, I would absolutely do 3 months.
Okay.
So that way you just don't have to keep redoing it.
Okay, okay.
So with giving any presentation, think of it more as having a conversation. It's just having a real estate conversation with somebody. And that, for me, it's less pressure. Because, you know, you're just talking to somebody about real estate, what they like and what they don't like. So think of it more like that, even with listing presentations. You know, you're just going into the home and having a conversation about real estate. But yeah, the point of this page is to find out their motivation, really, and why they are buying, you know, why they want to buy a house and why is it important for them to buy a house. Because you really want to understand that. Okay, so page 8 for you guys, build your preference profile. This is about uncovering expectations and preferences for communicating and anticipating timeline. And this is pretty, I would say, crucial because you want to know how they want to be communicated with, because you don't want to be annoying. And people will stop talking to you and ghost you if you're not communicating with them the way they want to be communicated with. And so don't assume everybody wants to be texted, because not everybody does. So how would you track? So the way you would track this is, well, you would put it in command for sure, but during your consults, you're going to be taking notes with what they're saying. One, it makes you look like you're paying attention, and you will be paying attention because you're taking notes. And makes them feel important because, you know, you're listening to what they're saying and you're making them feel important by taking notes. I take notes in listing presentations as well. Even when I'm previewing their home, walking around their home, I'm taking notes of the house before I get the listing. Because it just shows, I think, a confidence, and that I don't think most people do that. So it's, you know, it's showing how you are different.
And keeping an interest.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you.
Well, and if you're gonna list a house, you need to know some great things to say about it when you list it, so. Remember what you saw.
Okay, on your home wish list, this is to, well, I would ask these questions, and it's suggested that we role play, but do you guys want to get into groups of 2 and role play these questions? Okay. This is also really important to set expectations, and because you're getting an idea of what they're looking for. I had a buyer that I did a Zoom consult with them, and he wanted a new construction, no HOA, close to I-35, under 220, didn't want to be too close to his neighbors. So I said, that's just not possible. Sorry. So, I mean, depending on what they say, you want to set those expectations of, don't just say, yeah, I'll find you that, because, I mean, knowing your market also you'll be able to determine that's probably not going to happen. Especially when people say they want to buy a house for $100,000 in Edmond, I'm just like, sorry, that's not going to happen. And I get that. I used to get that call all the time. I'm sorry.
So with the buyers that I have recently, their expectations are really not that high.
Yeah,
Like,
that's great.
Yeah, it's great. But the expectations that they do have doesn't mean that what they want is on the market right now.
Mhm.
So I keep, like, what I told them was, hey, the house might not be on the market today, but that doesn't say that it won't hit the market tomorrow or a week. You know, is that something that, you know?
Yeah, that's a
Works for
smart
you.
thing to say.
Yeah.
And if
That's
you,
where your value is.
Yeah.
and if you know, if they have a specific neighborhood that they like and there's nothing on the market, you can send out letters
Yeah.
saying that you have a buyer for their house. And that's a possible listing appointment too. You could door knock too for that neighborhood saying, I have a buyer for your house.
I mean, that's unique value.
Yes.
That's, I will hunt for your house.
And in this market, you kind of have to do that
Yeah.
because there's nothing on the market. So, okay, do you guys have,
I would sign that person.
okay. See, after you share all those things that you're gonna do, it's easy to get that signed. Okay, if you guys wanna get in groups of 2 and just role play those questions, because these questions kind of set up the next thing of the neighborhood preferences.
And this is in person, is there, like, during an appointment, right?
Yes, this is during the buyer consult.
And do you have this screen with like the questions on it, like on like the TV or so? Like, are you showing them this too, or is this for your?
Yes,
referral?
this,
Okay.
I think this is, yes, for the
Okay.
buyer consult.
Yeah, you'd be showing them
Yes.
this. Okay.
You actually have that like printed out?
Yes, so
Okay.
you would print, once you create your presentation, you would print it out and give them a copy.
Okay,
And then you need to kind of have a system for taking notes for your questions.
okay.
So, yeah, based on these questions,
We're not.
Sure, of course. Yes, it is.
Okay, you want to go first or we see your letters? Okay. It's going to be.
it is page,
Like, what's?
I'm having trouble finding.
I feel like they're mixed up.
Four would be nice, but, we're free right now.
I think it's page 8.
I would ask,
You mind if I?
No, please, because I know this whole conference not
We
working.
got a lot of-
It's just really good that- Right, exactly. So I can see why they organize this, like,
I don't know.
I know, just ask how many measures.
I would ask.
or like.
Because that's what you're really doing.
Right.
And I would,
Somewhere
I would
like-
like another.
You should have put 6 years on your house.
yeah.
Make myself and I I don't know. I'm not going to.
Well, we've already had over 2 pages, so we've already like been talking a little bit.
I guess if you're on a Zoom, you can review those questions on this page, like who will be living
I'll use my kids to practice on.
negotiables.
Yeah, I'll be really great. Oh, definitely. Yeah, we have that's- Yeah, we need an office, because we work stuff from home, so we need to stay with that. We want at least 3 measures. And if one of them is gone, we just want to have 3 weeks. I definitely want, for me, color is really wrong, so I'm really much next that.
Like, would that be considered your guest bathroom or?
The best guy, good best design,
Okay, got it, so master bathroom.
yeah.
All your
Yeah, it can be an ensuite, that's.
I go down, they all need their own rooms, try to save 15 grand.
Alright. So now we have, is that 3?
I still own
Okay.
them.
Let's see, I also, do I want an island mansion?
A lot of people. I mean, in our rentals, twice.
And, you know, something else really important, because I hate paying big bills. I want to make sure that it's, well constructed, like,
I'll never get
windows
it.
are sealed, doors are sealed.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, well, it was just
and,
a contract.
it's updated.
Yeah, the thermostats will sort of make it
What are your top five?
big nights, but.
Okay, perfect. Now, one of those non-negotiables possibly could be negotiated out of those. Maybe we could find a house that, maybe doesn't have an island as a contract. Like, how do we feel about that?
Good.
Yeah, I'm the island, the things like that.
It's gonna be a big house.
As long as there's big counter, yeah, it's okay if there's no island. But if there's one
Sign here.
Because right now, in my kitchen, like, before I buy it, that's not enough.
It's one of those, top 5 needs, what would you really, really want for your house?
I think location at that point.
Yeah.
I don't want to know, three auditors around like that. I don't want to get area, but I want to be close to like really no, not, 3 blocks away from Walmart,
Okay, yeah, so. Yeah. Do you have a preference on your houses though?
I never buy.
I want this
If it's not the 1973, I will not look at it. No, not.
You will.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's starting to do that you need the house. Great models. No, I don't need it to be some. I don't need it to be from a specific year, but I don't want to have to worry about doing renovations. I don't worry about mold walls or
Okay, great. That's actually a part of my next question. I wanted to know if you
Okay.
would return email or
Let's
something
move
that
on to the
we
next
could
section.
Do some maybe work on.
Yeah. So if you have a script partner, I would role play this or just practice your presentation all
I
together.
was working with a buyer.
So, because the next section is going to be the neighborhood insights. So based on whatever they say, whatever their wish list is, you're going to figure out what neighborhoods they want to be in. Right, right. So if you have a good idea, that's why it's important to preview properties, because if you're previewing properties, it'll give you a good idea of what neighborhoods to match them with. So have you guys done any of the SNAP neighborhood, the neighborhood snaps? For
I've seen
clients?
it, I haven't done one. I know what it is.
They're pretty cool because for some reason, well, Stephanie is sending me snaps on my neighborhood.
I don't even find the word.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it just keeps saying no neighborhood available. And I put it in like 10 times.
Were we supposed to download this?
Do you have the KW app, the Kelly? Okay. So you'll want to get those and then, but this, you can set it up on command
She went
for a
to the
neighborhood.
class and like showed somebody and was like, oh, Sarah's my color.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like fine, so I get insights on my neighborhood. I'm like, oh, thanks, Stephanie. But it's cool and it makes you the expert on the neighborhood because you're sending your clients these neighborhood insights. And
Sorry, is this something you can provide like at an open house, like this be a good thing to have for them, or is this more just for an individual person?
yeah, absolutely. Because you could at an open house, you could share your app with somebody. You can get their information and then set up if they want those insights. You can set them up so they can get notifications.
Gotcha. Oh, okay, so this is like an updating thing, like it keeps changing.
Yes.
Okay,
So they're
cool.
gonna get, I think it's monthly updates on that neighborhood.
It's really smart because Gracie actually did that for someone
Is it like this?
Yes.
who was a neighbor of a house that he listed and sold. And I actually went to an orthodontic appointment and that doctor was like, oh, I know Grady, he sends me blah, blah, blah every month.
Yeah.
And he sold so-and-so's house right next door. And so like, it's also great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's smart to do on your listings for yourself, because it's kind of embarrassing if you have a property listed and you don't know that the neighbor's house went up on the market. So a lot of times I'll do searches, set up searches for that neighborhood in MLS too. That's a sidebar. Something.
And have them send it to yourself? Like,
Yeah.
put yourself on for that?
Yeah, for that listing.
So smart.
So as soon as something pops up on the market, it notifies me. I'm like, oh, your neighbor's house went on the market and it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know.
Although they'll probably call you before they're.
Yeah, because I've had, you know, people say, well, my neighbor's house just went up on the market,
Yeah.
and it makes me feel dumb if I didn't know about that, because
Yeah.
I should know about that. Because that's my business to know about that.
Do you ever go around your neighborhood and like give flyers of like yourself or like, hey, this is business card?
Yeah, door knocking.
In your neighborhood?
My own.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
So-
like perfect for referrals and brand new agents. I did that. I live out in the freaking boonies and I know all of my neighbors. And I just went through and sent out postcards like, hey,
Mhm.
guess what? I'm licensed.
Yeah, that's smart. And then
I
if
have
you
the
have,
next door app, and so everybody has their names like on their house, like
Oh,
they
yeah.
have their names, and so I was thinking, I was like, oh, that'd be cool, like if I could just go introduce myself, like, hey, neighbor, like.
yeah, or just put, you can make a post. Yeah, you can make a post on that saying that you're in real estate. If anybody wants information on the market or any information on the neighborhood, that you could be their go-to person.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So how buying a home works. This is kind of walking them through what I'm keep talking about, walking them through the process. And I emphasize that to my client, that they want a strong team. They want an A team. And the team would include a realtor, a loan officer, an inspector, and the title company. If all those people, you have all really good people and they all know what they're doing, it makes the process so much smoother versus somebody that is horrible.
What was the
And
last person that you
the
said?
title company. So I emphasize upfront how important it is that they pick really good people, especially a lender. And depending if they're pre-approved or not, if they are already pre-approved, and it's with somebody that is not great, you might just suggest that they get a couple different opinions. Because if they don't have a good reputation or they're not good, I mean, if you've done any transactions with a horrible somebody else that doesn't know what they're doing, it just makes the whole process very stressful and not fun.
And then they may not use you in the future. So they're
Well, and they
just like-
associate this horrible experience with you, even if you did a good job.
Mhm.
So you may have to explain to them what a pre-qual is versus a pre-approval. And a pre-qualification is just a preliminary evaluation of how much a buyer can afford to borrow, while a pre-approval is a more involved process in which the lender verifies income, employment, and other financial information to evaluate how much the buyer can afford to borrow. I would, emphasize that it's important for them to go ahead and get pre-approved, especially in today's market, because it's so competitive.
So you know how much you can put down for an offer.
Correct. And I talk about what the market looks like right now, meaning we don't have a lot of inventory. So as soon as something hits the market, there's multiple offers. It's probably going to be full price. So you want to be able to talk about all that and explain how are you going to win that multiple offer competition.
Do you help them find a title company? Do you help them find people
So,
for the team?
oh So I always say, I, of course, have recommendations that I can recommend to you. For a loan officer, I normally give them 3 names. I tell them, talk to a couple different people and pick who you feel most comfortable with. All 3 of the people I'm going to give them are amazing. So it doesn't matter to me which one they go with.
Or what?
It doesn't matter to me which lender they go with.
And they're different companies.
Yeah.
Not 3 officers in the same company.
Correct.
Do
I
you
pick 3.
also ask them to go to their home bank as well?
No.
Okay, why?
Well, it depends. Like if they, I normally don't ask them. No, I don't. Because I don't know who they're banking with. And
We're being taught differently in our PC group coaching
okay.
class. So I was told to do, send them 2 to 3 lenders and then have them also contact their own bank.
I probably wouldn't recommend that just because I don't know who they're, I mean, what if it's USAA or Bank of America? They're terrible.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't recommend that. I want them to use my preferred people, and I talk them up.
Yeah.
Like they're amazing, and if you go with any of these people, you'll have a good experience.
Okay.
And then I talk about
Good to know.
people, online lenders. Some of them are bad, but it's nice to be able to get face to face with somebody if there's an issue. Keller Williams is all about Keller Mortgage. So if you do use Keller Mortgage, that's great. The next slide is about them. But if you don't want to use them, then you would just take that slide out.
Can I just add one thing? Like when I bought my house, my real estate agent, she gave me one person that was a loan officer, and she told me like he was great, blah blah blah. And I was a first time home buyer. I didn't know anything about taking out loans, any of that. So to me, that was really helpful that she narrowed it down to one person and was like, here, just give him a call. If that doesn't work out, we'll look for something else, but just try this. And it just got the ball rolling. And he was great. Till this day, he still sends me birthday cards and like, and my Christmas cards. Yeah, it's sweet.
I would at least give them 2. Okay. So that way, if for whatever reason, they don't like that person, that they're not upset with you, that you only gave them that one option.
Yeah.
Because I've had that happen. I've had a lender I've worked with for 10 years. He's amazing. One time, the person just did not connect with him. I don't know what it was. And that happens with me as well. And she didn't have a good experience with him. So it's just like, I don't know what, he sent her a gift card afterwards, and I don't know. It was just, some people just don't connect. So that's why I normally recommend at least 2 different people to give to them.
Sometimes one person doesn't answer. You want, to get started.
It is hard to find lenders, like for me anyways, that not everybody's using. But I mean, if everybody's using them, obviously they're good, but then that's also an overload, I feel like, on their plate because they have so many things. Like I want somebody who's going to be like really, really good, but not so overloaded to feel like they can't keep up. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. The people that are that good, they normally have a team.
Okay.
So they can handle it.
I have all the new agent questions over here, but how do you, as a brand new agent, know who to recommend as a lender?
I get on Keller Williams Talk, and I just say, hey,
so you can go around and ask all the top agents who they recommend, and you can come up with a good list. I would call the lenders and ask them to go to coffee with you, and just to get to know them and to see if we can do business together. They're going to want your business. So they're going to want that meeting. Most of the time, as your name gets out there, they're going to be calling you to have coffee with them.
I was an insurance agent, and so I was constantly like calling lenders for referral source and this and that. And the moment they all found out I was a realtor, now they were all trying to
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, excuse me, I've been trying to schedule lunch with you for like 3 months.
Yeah. So, but with insurance, I do say I would contact whoever you have your auto with, contact them first, see what their quote is. I would also get a couple other quotes, and I'd be happy to recommend somebody to you. But I do recommend for whoever, because a lot of times they'll get a deal because they already have a relationship with them. So I would recommend that, but not necessarily whoever they bank with, because I don't know who they bank with.
So you get coffee with them and say, hey, like I'd like to do business with you. I'd like to refer my people to you. How do you work? How do you, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you could just ask them kind of, you know, what their process is if you were to refer them a buyer, what would they do? And see what they say. You want them to kind of
There's a whole entire room full of scripts and then find your place, but there's other places. Sorry.
You're fine.
Sorry.
I swear, I love you too.
I'm so sorry.
There's a script for everything. So, and it's all about scripts.
Which I should not be.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
I just didn't, my question was that, like, how do you go about that?
Oh, okay, yeah.
But yeah, if there's a script.
So you will want them to do the same thing you do, have them come to the office or have a phone conversation. And normally it's better if they meet their lender face to face. And because there's a lot of stuff to go over in that process. And so it's better to do a face to face. And all my preferred lenders, they do that. They meet them and have that, you know, the same kind of conversations that I'm going to have, what their wants and needs and different types of loans, and they can go over all that in that process. I think it's better to do face to face than just a phone conversation.
And have that flexibility if they can't do that face to face to know how to, you know, send emails with all those documents that you fill out.
Yeah, absolutely. So if that's not possible for them to meet for whatever reason, what are they going to do? And just kind of a big thing with lenders is, are they able to close on time? If you give them a 30-day close, can they meet that? Because it's a real big deal if they don't.
I like that you interview them too, because I feel like if they're not going to get back to me very quickly, they're not going to get back to my client very quickly.
Right.
And that makes me look bad.
Yeah.
For referring them. So I like that.
Yeah.
I feel like face to face is kind of like one of those, you're less likely to do that to me if we've already met.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea.
So, and you want to make sure that that lender is available for your client, that they'll take their call or they'll text them or whatever, that they're, you know, even on weekends. Because all my lenders will take those calls. Versus maybe, I don't know, I've worked with a lot of bad lenders that they won't take my call. So it's just very frustrating if they're bad. So, you know, you can talk about that. Like if they're not reputable, it can make the whole process very stressful. I also set expectations of how many homes to look at. I say in this type of market, standard is 7 to 8 homes. If it's more than that, that's fine. But I want to set that expectation because I don't want them thinking normal is 50 homes, because that's not normal. And if you're showing 50 homes, you need to go back to another buyer consult to figure out what are they really looking for.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'll go out on a Saturday and we'll knock out, I don't know, 8 homes. And if they don't find what they want, they'll apologize to me. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, that's okay. I mean, we'll find you something. But they have that expectation of, I should find something by now if I've looked at 10 homes.
Or revisit their wants and needs.
Right. Maybe they're unrealistic of what they really want. Okay. So find your new home. No, okay. Make your offer, negotiate the terms. Every buyer is going to ask, once they find that property, what should I offer? They're not going to know. You have to tell them what's reasonable. So I tell them, we're going to look at comps is how we determine what we're going to offer. I show them MLS statistics. If depending on the type of buyer you're working with, because some you can just tell they're lowball offers. They're going to make a real lowball offer. It's going to be unreasonable and a waste of your time. So there's MLS statistics to show that in MLS, most homes sell for, I think, 99% of what they're listed for. So there's a whole chart that you can show them. This is what is the statistics in MLS. And that will also set their expectations of, oh, maybe I shouldn't make a $50,000 low offer.
You said you can tell what someone's gonna do. Is it the way they act or like what?
It's kind of what they
tells you?
say.
Okay, I see. They'll like make.
Yeah, I had a call on a property and they were just really questioning my list price.
Okay.
There was lots of questions about how I came to that list price and all this, all this stuff. So I just got the feeling that they were gonna make a low offer, and they did.
And they did.
They were the buyer.
They were the buyer, yeah.
Would you, in that scenario, invite them into the office so that you could do a whole thing? And
Well,
maybe
I would have, but they went with a different realtor to write the offer. So
Okay.
that
I hope
was,
she or he
well,
talked to them out of that.
no, they made a real low
Oh, they
offer and
did?
we denied it. We didn't even
You didn't even
respond.
counter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
other agent had to have seen that coming.
Well, it was $200,000 less.
Oh,
Now,
That's nuts.
that's crazy.
That's nuts.
Now, how would you handle someone who thinks they know?
Yes, like a parent.
Yeah,
love
so I'm
parents.
actually, I'm dealing with this right now as well. They are like, yeah, that's too much, and there's no way that I would ever pay that amount for that much property. And I'm like, well, land is different because land is scarce and it's like, it's just different, and then you have to think location and all of that, what comes into the price of every acre is what she was doing was, oh, that's $9,000 per acre, blah, 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 blah. The location is like,
Right.
great.
You just want to have information at your fingertips.
Right. Okay.
So to be able to share with them,
Mhm.
because they're not going to listen to anything but facts.
Right.
So you want to have the facts in front of you, like, well, this is price per acre in this area.
Okay.
Over here, this is the price per acre. And you also have to consider all these other things, if it has a well, if it's fenced, if it's, whatever it is zoned. So there's lots of different things to think about. But really just having that information, you want to be the expert. You want to be knowledgeable and not just say, oh, let me get back with you. It's okay if you say that, but just knowing your market is going to be able to help you so much.
Yeah.
So it's as everyday kind of study of what's going on in the real estate in your market. Okay, I would, in this market, when you're talking about this, I would touch on multiple offers, because you want that expectation of, we're probably going to deal with multiple offers depending on whatever price range it is. And really anything under 300 right now is multiple offers. And explaining to them how you're going to win that multiple offer. You want to explain having a strong lender helps, because if you have a reputable lender in a multiple offer situation, I'd rather work with this lender than whoever this other person is. If it's a lender that I've never heard of, I don't know. Just if you're dealing with a good lender versus a bad lender in a multiple offer situation and it's the same price, you're going to go with the stronger lender. So that's one thing. I have my buyers write a letter saying, just a brief information about themselves and their family, why they like the house, even include a picture on there, and that personalizes it. And it's not just really a business transaction. The sellers are looking at them as a person now because they read their bio. I'll give an example of the best one that I've ever received. I had a little house, it was 100,000 by campus. And the first day I had, 3 or 4 offers. And one of them was Kyle Davis. And he wrote a letter, and it was the best freaking letter that I've ever and he won it because of this letter. But anyway, the letter basically said he used to own that house. He bought it with his dad. They fixed it up. Since then, his dad had passed away. He wants that house because it reminds him of his dad, and he's going to keep it for, you know, ever. And so my sellers were like, oh my gosh. And I don't even know if his was the highest offer, but because he personalized it so much, yeah, they went with him. Because not every, yeah, not.
I did this.
It is
The other
bad business
day.
tampering.
I wrote the letter on very limited information.
Yeah, but basically, I mean, it doesn't have to be anything like that, but people want to know that you like their house and these are all the things that you like about their house. So that it's been super helpful to do
I
stuff
also had to tell
like
them,
that.
like, about concessions, you know, it was like, if someone else, because there was multiple offer situation, I was like, even if you guys have, let's say they're offering $3,000 more than you, but they have no concessions, and you're asking for $2,000 in concessions, if it doesn't appraise, they're gonna have to lower it even more, so if you can drop the concessions. And I had to do that the other day, and that was like,
Yeah.
they did not really like that, but I was like, if you wanna win this offer, I think you have to drop the
Right.
concessions.
You need to make it as clean
As clean
as possible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not asking for a launch, a contingencies, not asking for a warranty, make it clean. And then after inspections, then you can renegotiate.
But at least you put us in the door,
Yeah, so,
because it doesn't mean it's gonna appraise it.
Right.
correct. So, yeah, I normally will have that conversation at this buyer consult too. Like if we pay full price, top market value for this property, we don't, we can be a little more picky with inspections versus if we're getting a really good deal on list price, on sales price, then, you know, let's not beat them up on a bunch of stupid inspection repairs.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like jumping over dollars to pick up pennies in
Yes.
that situation.
Yeah.
And then I have the inspection conversation here as well, because you want to set expectations for an inspector, because an inspector can bust your deal. Make sure you have a good one, because a bad one will they can just ruin the whole thing. So I tell them, you can have anyone you deem qualify inspect the property. I, of course, have wonderful people that I can recommend to you. And most of the time, they go with my person. When they don't, it's always like, why? Why? Yeah, if they insist on going with their own person, because sometimes they do, I just, you know, emphasize, make sure they were referred to you, make sure they have good referrals, you know, read their reviews, all that. Because if you pick a bad one, they can cost you thousands of dollars. And it's extremely important. And then, go ahead.
How deep is your trade team? How many plumbers you have on speed out? How many inspectors do you have?
So I have one preferred inspector.
One.
I have one home inspector that I have a backup if he's not available, but he's always available. So I have one person that I recommend for my
How did you
inspector.
find him and get that relationship?
It's kind of a funny story because my previous inspector I had worked with for 10 years and he passed away. So I was on the hunt for a new one. And I had been working with somebody all summer and he got injured and was out for several months. And so I used Vanguard Properties, Philip Graham. So he was the inspector on one of my listings. And I think, no, he was referred to me by somebody. And that week I actually had 5 inspections. So he saw me 5 times. And one of them was a mistake because one of them was on my listing. So we weren't planning on that one. But we saw each other, we're like, oh, how funny. So after that week of my 5 inspections, he just became my inspector because he was impressive. You're looking for someone that is thorough, but more importantly, that can explain what is wrong with the property in a way that doesn't scare the crap out of your buyer. You want him to find things, you want him to point out things, but you want him to explain it competently, and be able to communicate correctly. That's probably the biggest thing I look for in an inspector. But yeah, he's really great. But I walk them through of, we're looking, when we do an inspection, we're looking for major things. We're looking for, roof, water heater, HVAC, things that would be very costly to you, things that should be in working order. Those are the kinds of things that we want to make sure that are fixed or in a good working order. Not beat them up so much on cosmetic things or stupid little things that you can do yourself. Going through the list, I normally recommend, pick what you do not want to do yourself. And if it's something that you can do yourself, just do yourself. So that way they have the expectation of they're not going to ask for the whole list, because that can bust a deal. So inspections are a big bust. A lot of times they can bust so many contracts.
My daughter is asleep and I am just
She's so cute.
From school.
Okay.
So I apologize for standing by.
Thanks for coming.
I'm here screaming child in the next few seconds. So.
I appreciate it.
That's really cute. I feel like you should take a picture of it.
I did.
She's better behaved than I was.
I would not bring all three to this class, but just one. Manageable.
Okay. So any questions on that part?
Good job.
Thank you.
I'll throw those away for you if you want me to.
If you are using Keller Mortgage, you have to put this disclosure up there. Okay, the next part is your value proposition. This is what you were talking about, like, why am I going to work with you? You just give a little spiel of your value proposition and what you're about and what you're going to do for them. I would probably keep it simple. You don't have to read the whole thing in front of them. One of the things I say is, I don't just want to be your realtor on this transaction. I want to be your realtor for life. And my goal is to make this process as easy and stress-free as possible. But you can, come up with your own, you can read what they wrote. And as a new agent, you don't have to have these numbers right here.
Could you do your market centers instead of?
Yes, you can do your market centers. I talked to Sherry about that, and what they're asking for right here might be a little difficult, but if you're on a team, I would use your team's numbers for sure. And if you're just an individual agent, but a brand new, you don't have to put anything, because they're not.
Okay, I was like, I got nothing.
Yeah, they're not gonna ask.
It says these are Sarah's numbers.
Where can you find this to customize this?
So this will be in Command.
Okay.
So
There's just so many things in Command. It's like.
yeah, it's in
I don't even know how to
it's in
website.
the design. Oh, okay. Well, you get a free one with.
Like show us how to do that.
That might be included. But it's pretty simple to do.
Yeah.
Okay, but some other numbers that you might use. This is also where you could put your ratings and reviews. And other numbers would be if you've helped military families, if you've helped a lot of military families, you could put that on there. You could
help anybody.
then just leave it blank. Don't worry, because
But you can have numbers like what she was talking about. The hard numbers that tell people what the market is actually doing right now.
Yeah.
Right? So how many houses are on the market right now? What's that compared to last year and the year before? What are they selling for compared to what is the listing price, right? People would think you're a genius for sitting there with that information.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's always numbers. Your personal numbers, if you don't have any, you don't have to put any.
Well,
And that just comes with practice. So if you role play, if you get a role play partner, just the more you practice it and the more you do the scripts, I mean, you'd be surprised how confident, how fast you'll be able to grab that confidence.
You guys have like any tricks on how to memorize scripts? I mean, besides practicing them. Just a quick way.
I mean, listening to them, if you record yourself and then you can listen to them. But I mean, the more you practice them and read them and role play, and if you're listening to them, you'll be surprised that someday they'll just come out and you're like, where did that come from? It's just because you've internalized it. So it's all about just practicing it.
and put it in your own vernacular.
Yeah.
In your own vocabulary.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the scripts are great and I use a lot of them, but I also had tweaked them to where they sound more like me.
Yeah.
And the more you practice them, they're not going to sound so scripted. Because if you practice them, if you've never read a script and you read it, it sounds like a script. But if you've internalized it, it just comes out, like butter, where it's not like, wow, that sounds really good.
I feel like just even just the way you presented everything and talk, you have a very comforting and unrushed,
Oh, thank you.
yet very confident and professional. It really is. I'm like, I need to talk like her.
Well, and it just comes from practice, because when you first start script practicing with somebody, a lot of people will talk so fast just because
That's my issue.
you get nervous, and that's normal. Just slow down, because they're not going to hang up on you, and if they do, that's okay.
Right. That's my other thing too, is sometimes when I'm doing calls and prospecting, and I feel like I need to get everything out, like my initial stuff, so fast so that they don't hang up, they don't get bored. But I think that kind of is jarring to people too.
Yeah. Well, I start at 8 in the morning, so it's like, oh, that's like a lot of information to wake up to if they're just waking up. So just, I would slow down. If they hang up, that's okay. Just go to somebody else.
Listen to other people do calls, like before we get up and do them, or are we just supposed to do them by ourselves, like on our own time?
Yeah, I mean, I think any agent, especially any of the top agents, if you wanted to listen to them, I mean, anytime that you want to come in and listen to my calls, that's fine. Most people in the office are very friendly and open and wanting to help people. So that's one reason why I love this office so much, is like they want to help you and they want you to succeed. We're not like, no, it's just my information and it's my secrets. No, it's, just, you can do the same thing I do. Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll be.
And I started YouTubing calls.
Yeah, I did that for Lizzie.
Oh.
I've been listening to agents. There's this one agent, and God bless her precious heart. She makes these amazing calls, and all you hear is the audio, and then it shows the video, and she's literally sitting there just eating a big giant bowl of corn. She's so cool.
Will you
And
send me
she's
a link to her?
getting these, huh?
Will you send me a link to her?
Yeah, I will.
What's
And
her name?
I don't even know. I've only found her, like, I just watched her a couple nights ago, and I watched her for like an hour.
What am I Googling exactly?
Listing presentation calls, things like this, exactly like this.
Okay.
Scripts, I don't know, it was, maybe my tags were like scripts or call presentations or something. Yeah.
Okay, there are scripts for closings and for welcoming the buyer presentation. Those are in your Elemental script book. So I found that the scripts for closing and for getting the actual agreement signed were pretty helpful. I thought they sounded pretty good. Some scripts are like, I don't know.
Yeah, some scripts do sound like things that know real human being would ever say, but I think it's like gets to the gist of what you should
Yeah.
say. So.
Is the
So-
KW app different from the Kelly app then, I'm guessing?
Yes,
Okay, yeah, that
it's different.
That's one we have. The Kelly commands, which never works for me though, so.
So I'll say what I kind of briefly went over it before. After, to get them to sign it, I just basically put it in front of them, and I tell them I put a lot of time and work into each and every one of my clients, and I just ask that you work with me exclusively, and here it is. And I don't get a whole lot of pushback. And then I briefly explain it. I say, this puts me to work for you. I'll be able to negotiate on your behalf in order to get you the best deal. You don't pay me anything. My compensation comes from the seller, and ask them to sign it.
I thought we didn't have to say, I thought we weren't supposed to say that.
Maybe you're not, maybe I'm teaching wrong.
I don't know. I said that again.
That you don't have to pay me?
That sounds familiar, but I can't remember what.
Well, a lot of times buyers think that I cost something. I had a call the other day of, he was just calling listing agents, and I was trying to get the appointment and explaining to him the benefit and yada, yada, yada. And well, I don't want to pay an agent $15,000. And I'm like, well, since you're the buyer, you don't pay real estate fees. That is always the seller's fee.
So like closing costs usually goes on the people selling the house?
So the buyer has their own closing costs and for their loan. So they're going to put a down payment in their buyer closing cost. The seller has their own closing costs, and part of their closing cost is that 6% listing fee that's split between two agents most of the time. So
Yeah, you really don't cost a buyer this.
yeah, so it's in their best interest to work with one agent. So, and then I also have said that way you don't have a bunch of agents running all over town. You're working with one agent. Because that's just rude. Yes.
A bunch of people, calling you. All these people have your number now. They'll be calling you. That would be confusing. You have more than one person.
How do you
Right.
know not two people are going to book you on the same place, like.
Yeah.
Try for the same place multiple times. So
But let's see. The scripts that are in your elementals, the first one, okay, well, I'll do this. What we're going to do now is sign the buyer representation agreement, which puts me to work for you. It gives me a tool that I need to represent you for your purchase. With this tool, I have the opportunity to negotiate for you and get you the best deal. And getting the best deal is important to you, isn't it? Perfect. Then let's do the right thing and sign the agreement to put me to work for you. That one's pretty good. You can tweak it. This first one, all I ask in exchange for my superior customer service promise is that you agree to work with me exclusively. Does that sound fair? Okay, can we sign and shake on that? We don't shake anymore, but
Air shake.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll move it. So I've, just come up with one that works for you. Really, all you have to do is ask, and ask in a way that's just confident, like this is what you do, this is normal. This is a whole lot easier than getting a listing agreement signed. There's a whole lot less objections. There are objection handlers for this. I would say if they don't want to sign it, if they just say, I'm uncomfortable with that, it's okay to let that person go. You don't have to work with everybody. I've learned the hard way, it's probably best not to work with people like that. And if they say I'm uncomfortable with that, just say I'm uncomfortable with not having it signed, and I only work with buyers with an exclusive agreement. Your time is very valuable, so don't waste time on buyers that aren't committed to you.
That would be a time to go back to the brokerage. I mean, KW has resources that nobody else has. Signing this document gives you access to those resources.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, so I just signed up for this KW app, but it has me as a buyer. Is there like a special way to do it where I'm the agent?
Well, the Kelly app is, I think, how you can control it. That KW app is what you're going to be sending to your clients. So you can customize that. Thank you. Okay. So you can share.
Is there a way to link the two, my Kelly and my KW?
I don't know, actually. I know how to share it.
I'm pretty sure there's separate, from what Jennifer said, I'm pretty sure Kelly is like for agents and the other one is for anyone.
Correct.
Or they're just separate.
So you share it, you want to download the KW app because I think that's how you can share it. And if it's customizable, I mean, if you have all your information in it, then you're sharing your
I have the.
branded one is what
Yeah, mine's, that's what I mean, mine's not branded, mine looks like I'm a buyer.
So you will want to brand yours in Command. And how to do that is probably another class. Tiffany,
Okay.
yes. Because my assistant did it for me, so I actually don't know how to do it either. I'm sorry. Okay.
That's what mine looks like.
But yeah, do you guys, that's basically it. Do you have any other questions?
If I have a buyer that wants to write an offer, is there a form? Because I've looked on Overhead and all the forms I've printed them all out. Where is a form for an offer?
It's a purchase contract. And
So it is
buyer
the
broker
full
agreement.
contract.
Yes, if they want to write an offer, you write the full contract.
And then you'll want to get with your PC. I still don't know how to use, I'm under contract with 3 people right now, and I have no idea how to use DocuSign. I literally just printed everything out and driven it to them. I cannot wait to learn how to do that.
I have an app on my phone that you can use it. It's free. It's called Adobe Fill and Sign, and you can make your own signatures. You can fill
I'm
everything
gonna have
out.
to do that because I need to learn DocuSign anyhow.
But it's
Yeah.
free and it's the same thing. It's called Adobe Fill and Sign, and like so, any paper you have, you can just tap in the line and add your.
Yes, I need that.
And it'll be-
I have no clue what I'm doing.
It'll be a lot easier once you learn
I
DocuSign.
cannot wait. I'm literally driving all over the place like,
Mhm.
let me get that for you.
Yeah.
I gotta go get the key. I did have someone help me with the DocuSign for the purchase agreement, but everything else I'm not gonna take because I don't know how to do it.
We should be having a class. Don't we have DocuSign classes?
Mhm.
So that'll help with that for sure.
So I can have like
But yeah,
a
it's,
consult on Zoom and then say, will you DocuSign your buyer representative agreement?
That's how I would do it.
yeah, I mean,
That's
I
exactly-
normally,
That's exactly what I do. But what I've been doing is, because I haven't done it like you're supposed to, and I haven't had like a whole listing presentation. And so whenever I'm sending the purchase contract, I'm sending over the buyer brokerage service or whatever, and then the agreement, at the same time. And then I've just been giving the agreement 3 months.
but I normally ask them, do they want to sign it electronically or do they want to sign it the old fashioned way?
Yeah.
And give them the option because not everybody wants to do DocuSign.
Not everybody knows how to do it.
But once you learn, yeah, once you learn how to do it, then you can ask them which they prefer. Because a lot of older people don't want to mess with DocuSign.
I'm even, one of them, I was like, I can send this attachment over, you can print it out and sign it, and then I'll come pick it up. That was one of the 2 that I did.
So good job, 3 under contract. That's
Girl, I
amazing.
have no clue what I'm doing.
That's what I was asking, how long have you been in real estate?
Not long enough to have any idea what I'm doing.
Just
Are you
like,
individual?
When you do know what you're doing, you're gonna have like.
Oh, I bet y'all, that's when I'll be slow. Hey, what you got? What you got?
And you're an individual agent, right? Or
Mhm.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
I've
Good
been,
job.
I don't know, when was onboarding, 3 weeks ago?
Beginning of this month, yeah.
Mhm.
So where has your business come from? The 3 that you've done?
Well, if you know anyone who needs someone Spanish, I do speak Spanish.
Oh, really?
I was a certified court interpreter for
Oh.
many years.
I do.
And
Okay.
so, yes.
Give me your number.
Okay, good. So that's, 2 of them have been through that. So I just got a new listing and he just signed right when you were talking. I was like,
Yeah.
So, he actually was a FISBO that I called, and I told him, I speak Spanish. I would love to market, I can market both English and Spanish. This is a great area for both. I never thought that he would call me back. And he wrote me last night and was like, hey, if they don't show up in the morning. And then this morning I was like, hey, Mr. So-and-so, just wanted to let you know, or just wanted to follow up with you. And then my phone goes, zzz, and I looked down and he wrote me right as I was talking.
That's exciting.
I know, I was like,
Good job.
so anyway,
That's
that's been
Okay.
like my saving grace.
Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, because I mean, I get those calls all the time.
Girl, send them on over. I'm working my butt off for a $59,000 offer. If I work that hard for $59,000 offer, I promise you, we'll work hard. I mean, I even set up her insurance. Like,
Oh, that's great.
Called 4 different people, gave them all her information.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
bye.
I really appreciate it.
We're gonna end it. Did anybody from Zoom have any questions?
That's the thing. And that's why I told him, I want you to sign this
All right, well, I'm gonna sign off.
I was like,